roll. Senator Pintar. Here, Senator Lickstein.
Here.
Senator Hurwitz. Here. Senator Hankins.
Yes.
Senator Gale. Senator Bartow. Here. Senator Mays.
Here.
Senator Pugh.
Here.
Senator Keno.
Here.
Senator Palmer.
Here.
Senator Herrera.
Here.
Senator Polk. Senator Conover. Senator Grant.
Here.
Senator Adele.
Here.
Senator Borowski. Senator Ham.
Here.
Senator Murkowski. Senator Wolf.
Here by proxy. For the clerk, my name is Ryan Fedashik, Fedasiuk.
Okay.
Senator Sheehan. Senator Hall. Senator Zane. And Senator Piana. We do have a quorum. We will begin with the adoption of the agenda. Are there any motions?
Mr. Speaker, I move to strike section, the one about confirming the nominee.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Amendment is adopted. We'll no longer do this, but.
I move to strike that by unanimous consent.
Any objection? Are there any other points or motions on the adoption of the agenda?
Mr. Speaker, I move to strike the report from Vice President Verback and the report from Chief of Staff Gottmaker.
Is there a second? Seeing none, the motion fails.
Sam won't be here, she's working.
That's true. We will skip it. Are there any other
Motion,
points?
can I make a motion to reconsider that one?
No, can you do it? I motion to strike, so I can't read from here, I can't see it.
Sorry.
Section B, for Vice President Verba.
There's a second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay. Any other points or motions on the agenda? All right. Is there a motion to adopt?
I move to adopt.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? It is adopted. Okay, we will move to the adoption of the minutes from the second meeting. Are there any points or motions? Senator Murkowski.
I move to table the minutes for a period of 1 week.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The minutes have been tabled. Okay, we will move to a period of public comment. Are there any members of the public wishing to speak at this time? Seeing none, we will move on to reports from officers. President Toriente.
How much time do I have for this?
You have 4 minutes.
I need some more.
Make a motion to accept, time
Is there a,
by however long.
okay, is there a second for a limited time? All those in favor? All those opposed?
Okay, so I'm giving my State of the Student Government report. Instead of doing this like really glorious speech, I'm just going to take you through a lot of what's happened. It's just going to be pretty much an informal report. I want it to be more of a conversation and less of a me, declaring this is, how great we are and everything like that. So it's been a pretty busy semester so far. I think in talking with a lot of students and a lot of administrators and how they sort of viewed things in the past, student government has sort of been a benign institution to them in which we either do nothing or there's just like a lot of drama. But I think this semester in particular, there's been a lot of very, very real things that have happened that we've had to deal with and endure. And all of it seemingly happened back to back. Like when I spoke with Dr. Hanson, she was mentioning that like the semesters in the years typically are a lot, but this semester in particular seemed to be like a lot of really, maybe bad's not the right adjective, but it's been a very eventful semester in the last few months. So back in September, there were the racially motivated attacks that garnered a lot of media attention, not just on campus, but off campus. I was working with President Kerwin and his cabinet, creating sort of long-term solutions and where we're going to go from there. And out of that sort of partnership with specifically the Office of Campus Life and their conduct office, you saw last week a report from Will about including bias language in the conduct code. So that's been sort of the thing he's been spearheading along with Lauren, who's my Director of Diversity and Inclusion. We've been working with different student organizations to discuss and promote diversity and inclusion. So for example, I'm gonna say it was the end of October, like the middle of October, Chi Omega, the sorority, had a panel on diversity and inclusion, which I sat on along with Lauren, some professors and other administrators to really just discuss how we can integrate diversity and inclusion on an everyday basis. A really productive conversation. It's also a budget year, so we've been working with CFO and Vice President Kudravitz, who's sort of spearheading that along with Provost Bass. We're trying to figure out the best way to really have a conversation in which we are at a mutual understanding that like the university does need to continuously grow, but at the same time, there are students who are concerned about their ability to afford the school. And every semester we see time and time again, there are students concerned that they can't pay their bill and they're not going to be able to come back because the school is just increasingly becoming more and more expensive. And so we're trying to voice that concern to the appropriate administrators working on the budget, while also understanding that we need, money in order to support the services that students need here at AU in order to improve their quality of life. So the budget stuff has really been really complicated. Shannon is our representative to the University Budget Committee. She's been meeting with individual members of the committee as well to really get an understanding of the process. I also assisted in helping to select the next student trustee with the Student Bar Association and the Graduate Leadership Council. So this process started way back in, I want to say late August, early September. We got a pool of about 9 applicants. There were no law students that applied. It was mainly graduate and undergrad students. And so we went through the application to interview them, submitted 2 finalists to the board, and their trusteeship committee selected Valentina Fernandez as the next student trustee. They just confirmed her this past week. Let's see what else is there. So there's also the presidential search going on. So I'm not a member of the committee. The student members of the committee are Shaheem Sneed, who's a student trustee, and Arthur Soto Velasquez, who is a graduate student, he's a PhD candidate. I have been helping interview 4 of the finalists. So the board's going to choose a finalist for the president in the coming months. Saying too much about, I signed a confidentiality agreement, so I can't really divulge too much about it. But I think there are candidates there who either way will be really well off, if that makes any sense. So there was a mixed pool of traditional and non-traditional candidates, traditional being candidates who have a lot of experience in academia, non-traditional being experience working in institutions of higher education, but they have a lot of otherworldly experience. And so I think there are some candidates there. And from my understanding, they narrowed it down to 2 candidates in particular. And either one I think would be really good for the institution. We've also been working on student space with the Office of Campus Life, specifically University Center and Student Activities. I don't know how many of you remember, but a few years ago, there was a referendum in which 96.7, I believe it was, % of students voted in favor of using the 3rd floor of MGC for increased student space. The process has been a little bit more complicated than we have anticipated, and that the space has yet to be allocated, but we're working to, 1, get that space acquired for students, and then once it is acquired for students, divvying it up. This is like a long-term thing though, down the line for different student organizations. We realize that student organizations have a hard time engaging with the community because there isn't enough space for them to meet and do their work. Find on campus, find their community in these different student organizations, especially the ethnic and cultural clubs. So we're working on really getting student space for them. Sorry, 1 second. And then earlier this month, there was the student who passed away, Janae Davis Smith. That was a lot, quite honestly. Found out about that sometime in the middle of the night the next morning, which is just a whirlwind of a day that sort of happened. But we've been working with RHA and the Office of Campus Life to really see where we could support in that moment. It was really difficult to figure out what role student government was supposed to play in that because it's never happened before, so there was really no precedent for it. But I think we tried to balance supporting students and whatever resources they needed, providing space for them, while also making sure that we're able to take care of ourselves in the process, because it was a very emotionally draining occurrence. And we've been also trying to figure out how we can also assist the family. I know there was a fund for the funeral. I'm not sure if anyone knows when the funeral was. There was sort of a disconnect on the timeline. We can discuss that later though. And then the week after that, there was the presidential election, which evoked a lot of emotions for a lot of people, both good and bad. I think there were predominantly bad feelings around what happened. And then the day after the election, there was the protest in front of MGC with the whole flag burning. So to give you context, the flag burning thing really stirred up a lot, not even just within the AU community, but outside as well. So I had called Dr. Kerwin to speak to him about how students were feeling about it. And my understanding was that there were a lot of people, alumni, donors, et cetera, who were not happy with what happened. And there were a lot of people calling for the students to be expelled. This whole big thing was really quite a mess. But I issued a statement really reaffirming the support for marginalized students in that moment and understanding the symbolism of what the flag burning meant to them and looking beyond just the act, so to speak, and really understanding what they were feeling. And then that same week, as if enough didn't happen that week, there were swastikas that were drawn in a classroom in Ward. I want to say it was that Friday. That was truly just, I just think all that happened that week was just a lot in terms of the presidential election, how people were responding. But again, we were trying to figure out the best way to support. I think because nothing like this has happened before, really hard to figure out what the path forward was going to be. And then that following Monday, the same thing happened where another swastika was drawn in the classroom. And so we're really still trying to figure out what it's going to look like to support students in these coming months with in terms of the presidential election and the incoming administration, which I'll talk a little bit more about later. But I think ultimately what it comes down to is the fact that there are so many students on our campus who have a genuine fear for their lives, right? And so I think in terms of the presidential election, we like to talk in abstract politics, but I think there are a lot of students who are really afraid and not sure what's going to happen next. And so what I'm trying to do now is figure out how we can use AUSG and the organizational resources we have to best promote and protect those students. And then on Thursday and Friday, we had the Board of Trustees meetings, which they were aware of everything that happened. We sort of talked about it. They had some questions. I provided answers for them. But in the meeting, they really discussed everything I sort of just told you all about. And so moving forward, some big picture items I want to focus on are getting more people in AUSG involved in the overall work that we're doing. I think a lot of times, because Senate meets once a week and sometimes they don't get to meet on the weekends, y'all don't get to meet, it's really hard for us to get all on the same page. But I think in terms of dealing with the presidential election and promoting resources for marginalized students, I want this to be an effort that everyone is involved in. I think we have a habit of sort of like letting the president and the executive board be the ones, issuing, moving forward what we're going to be doing. But I think in terms of this specific context, we all need to be working together and on the same page. We need to focus on the mental health of our students. That includes trigger warnings and working with the faculty and Senate. That has been quite an interesting experience. The faculty and students, I think for the most part, are on the same page as to understanding that student health needs to be centered in the classroom. It's just a matter of going about how that's going to be done, where there's been some friction, but we're going to be working with them primarily next semester to really get that done. Promoting sexual assault resources on and off campus. So we've been working with the Wellness Center and trying to figure out how we can communicate, things like Title IX, what that process looks like and how nuanced it is. And also they had a presentation from the Network for Victim Recovery of DC come, I want to say last week, was it? I think it was last week. Not that many of us showed up, but it was a really informative presentation. They provide services for low-income students, well, not just students, but they focus on students in terms of, getting restraining orders and things like that. So we want to really communicate those resources to everyone. We're going to be continuing with Student Space, again, protecting and promoting as well as increasing resources for marginalized students. This goes back to the meetings we've been having over the past week or so. that some of you have been able to make it out to. I understand it was a bit of a last minute thing, but the presidential election was very unanticipated, so it's something we had to sort of deal with on the fly. But I've sent out the notes for the next steps items. I'm hoping to get something solidified over winter break, so that way we have tangible action steps to work on when we get back in January. And so I'm also going to be hopefully releasing an op-ed this week outlining my approach to the entire next steps thing. I think that'll be easier to do rather than the 2 letters that we discussed in the meeting for those of you who are all there. So that should be coming this week. I think we should also be working on getting a statement out regarding the sanctuary campus movement. So a good amount of faculty and staff here at AU recently wrote a letter in support of the movement. It's been getting a lot of national attention on several different college campuses. I think it's something we should all consider. Again, I don't want this to be something that like is a statement from me, but from the organization as a whole. Another initiative I'm working on is a diversity and inclusion training program for incoming students. It's going to be focused on structural inequality. I'm looking to format that over the spring semester, implemented that following sort of orientation period. It's meant to complement the AU core, which is the General Education Reimagined program. So they're completely redoing Gen Ed, and part of that is going to be AUX1 and AUX2. We can talk more about that later. If you have any specific questions. We also need to get the structural racism training for AUSG members reformatted so that way we can implement it as soon as possible. For those of you who were involved last year, Kirsten Gillette-Pierce passed a bill that said that all members have to go through racial and cultural sensitivity training, but we really want to revamp that to make sure it's as holistic as possible. So anyone interested in that, feel free to let me know. And really, I just want to make sure that it is very clear that like my primary focus moving forward is going to be supporting our marginalized students on campus who in the coming months are going to be facing very palpable and imminent threats to their lives. I understand that for many people on our campus, they don't really get why that is. To them, it's just, the election happened, we got to move on. But for many people, myself included, there's a very genuine fear for our lives, right? And so we have to make sure that we're doing all we can in this organization as servants to and for them, to really uplift them and support them however they need to be supported. So yeah, that's really all I have to talk about. I'm happy to take any questions about anything I've said, which I realized was a lot, but I wanted to make sure I got all of that out. If anyone has any questions. Yeah.
So of the big picture items that you mentioned, what would you say are your like biggest goals that you want accomplished by the end of the semester?
I think are you mean like the next steps items that I talked about, just like the goals in general?
Just what do you think is, what do you want accomplished by the end of the semester? I'll phrase it that way.
Yeah, so I think given the unanticipated outcome of the election and the reaction to it, what I'm really focusing on in the next few weeks is getting that action plan solidified so that way we have something to work on over winter break and then implement when we get back. For those of you who've looked at the notes and have been to the meetings, on that list includes really investigating and researching the sanctuary campus movement so that way that's something we can move on. And also Title IX enforcement is a little iffy given the incoming administration is something I'm also focusing on. So really solidifying those next steps, action items is what I'm focusing on the next few weeks. Yeah.
This is something different completely. You mentioned also the faculty senate. Last year we had student government representatives on faculty senate committees. Have you been able to appoint people to those? Yeah,
we got that taken care of. I want to say September it was.
Are you able to tell me who they are? Or
Brandon, who is my director of academic affairs, like deputies that he submitted to me because there were some he couldn't go to, but I can send you a list for that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
In terms of the sanctuary campuses,
Yeah.
I have been talking to a lot of the faculty. In fact, I talked to Professor Mittens. I don't know if you know, he was the one who wrote the letter of support. And a lot of, I believe that as an organization, we should hear out what the LASSO, BSA, and other organizations are saying, just because they do have direct contact with the communities that are mostly affected on it. know that a lot of the people are saying, well, you know, we don't have that much DACA students on campus. I believe that our DACA population is in the single digits, but what I do want to raise is that it also affects our international students, because some of them do come from Muslim countries or from targeted countries that the United States don't necessarily have great relations with right now. And it's sort of like, I just want to raise that point specifically because it comes very dear to my heart and very dear to some of my friends. I believe that not only do we need to sort of make this a sanctuary campus or start a movement for it, but I would like to throw the idea of maybe having explicit language in our admission page or somewhere within our goals as a university that address immigrant students, just because it's great to talk about inclusion, but a great part of making inclusion possible is that if DACA do go away, can American University have a system in which these kids can maintain their education and keep going to this school? And we shouldn't I've been researching what other schools have been doing already, and I can tell you for a fact a lot of university campuses don't wait until government decides to do something. So I don't necessarily believe that we should sit here and be like, well, Trump hasn't taken action yet, so we shouldn't worry about it. I think that is something that we should do as of now. So I'm very happy to share what I found out with other people and some of the movements and some of the things that other student governments have done in other colleges. But this is something that I'm doing research of, and hopefully I can present something to you guys soon about what something that we all as a Senate could do for these students.
Yeah, I agree, and I think you raise a really important point in that we should be talking with BSA, LASSO, et cetera, et cetera. At the meetings, I really stress the importance of reaching out to the individuals on campus who will be the most impacted by these programs. And I think Emma sort of brought this up at the last meeting or the meeting before, nothing about us without us, right? And so we really shouldn't be passing any policies, working on anything without talking about the people who should be centered in those conversations. Or there's going to be a lot of outreach going on.
Can I do a follow-up on that? I know that at least for LASSO, they had a meeting on the outcomes after the elections, and it was a really heated conversation, and it was packed with a lot of emotions. So I do feel even if you guys want to find out more about it, do reach out to these communities, because everybody at AU wants to do something. They just don't know what to do about it. So keep that in mind moving forward. And like I said, I'm really welcome to put you guys in contact with BSA or LASSO and staff, because I think that it's really important that we don't work for them, we work along them. That's a very key thing.
Any other questions for the president?
Just to go off about sanctuary cities, is there I wanted to go to the meetings, but unfortunately I wasn't able to.
Right.
But I read up on the notes, and I know there's still a lot of research still to be done. But I think two key questions: is there a standard that universities are following, or that universities are doing? And second, would it be binding, and would it have how much effect would it be able to have? Because I know last semester, not my first semester freshman year, there was a student in my class who was in a group with me, and she thought she had the correct visa to study here, but she didn't. And she the university was forced by immigration services not to allow her to continue studying here, or else the university would be sued. Is there something that have we talked to anyone on the university's legal team or council to know if this is something that can be binding and what we can do in the future?
Right. So I've reached out to the administration. Right now, it's sort of bouncing around the president's cabinet, so that way they can figure out what their answer is going to be. I also want to preface this by saying I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know the legal nuances of sanctuary campus and immigration enforcement. But one of the concerns that was raised was that if a university does become a sanctuary campus and they agree that they're not going to be using their resources to support immigration enforcement, part of the repercussions could be possibly losing federal funds. And so that's one of the primary concerns I know going around, not just here, but universities in general. I don't know what the precedent for this has been. I haven't really seen much in the past on universities and colleges being sanctuary campuses. That's not to say it hasn't been done. That's just to say that it's been something that's been brought to the fore very recently. So there's still a lot we're learning and figuring out. The organizer of the petition that sort of has been circulated has been in contact with different attorneys and like law students and faculty here at AU to figure out what the legal nuances of that would be.
Can we go to somebody else? Do you have a?
Chris and I have been like looking into the sanctuary stuff, and I don't think there are. I can't think of like out of any of the schools there are. I know that they're like this movement is starting on like the side, but I can't think of one that are.
Yeah, so kind of going off that, there are those schools that have gone through the whole process. There's a lot of schools that are kind of in the process that we're in right now. We're just kind of asking the administration where they are on it. But my friend who goes to Vassar College in New York, they actually have like a very, I can say this already. They have like a team of professors, right, like look into immigration law and regulation, and they were able to come up with a very detailed, like legally sound petition, not just a petition of like the concept of the sanctuary campus. They actually laid out how the university would legally be protected. So just like one of the most important things that I saw from it is that under current immigrations and custom regulation, which could theoretically be changed by the next administration without Congress, is that there's a group of like exempt areas in the United States, like hospitals and schools, that are exempt from providing support to ICE, and that's like material support. Like that would be enrollment data, stuff like that. So the university is technically already not forced to provide that information if they don't volunteer it. So under current regulation, if we need to be the sanctuary campus, we would kind of just be committing that under no circumstances would the university even consider giving the information. They already don't have to be just solidifying that they.
Any other questions?
A follow-up question, do you know how much money we receive in federal funding?
I don't know, no, I think John.
So I don't have a club yield to keep in mind that need is federal funding.
Any other questions?
Is the petition that you're talking about, are you talking about the petition that professors put out, or are you talking about student petition?
So it was a student petition. I know the one that faculty and staff put out came after the student petition. I can like send that to you. It's hyperlinked in the notes. Then I can also circulate the faculty and staff one. And on the faculty and staff petition, I know there were some law professors who were like on board with it. So I guess there's some legal merit the petition is asking for. Just keep in mind.
All right. We'll move down to Comptroller McDermott.
You want to play the video?
I'll play the video.
It's good. It's me walking to work. There's a dog in it. But I have other stuff too. Video's like 2 minutes.
Okay, I don't know what the sound is.
Hey everybody, how's it going? It's me, Comptroller Shannon, walking to work again, 8 a.m. Well, gonna get there 8 a.m. By 8 a.m. I'm probably gonna be late. Anyway, just a couple updates for y'all. Working on some co-sponsorships right now. Had some people call me, had some people email me. So, what's running? So like, yeah, like I'll let you know when those things happen. I hope you all have a really good Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving is either really great for people or sometimes stressful. So if anyone needs anything, you can always text me or Facebook message me. Yeah, not many new updates this week, just working on a lot of stuff. And then once those things come to be, I'll let you all know. Cool, sweet. Yeah. Oh, one thing. Okay, so it's written in the bylaws that the comptroller can make an employee handbook. So if anyone's interested in like working on this with me, because it's pretty a big task, and also it I'm like 6 to 7 years, I don't know, a long time. Okay, because like that could be kind of cool to have. I've been like looking into it, but I like can't find a copy anywhere. Yeah, see, look, cool sweatshirt, right? Frankie Cosmos was here last night. So yeah, I'm trying to think if I have anything else to tell you guys. I wish I did. Working on stuff, but yeah, that's really it. Cool. Have a great week. Wish I could be there. Always working brunch. Gonna email her, my boss, ask for a Sunday off so we can like hang out. But if anyone ever wants to meet, I'm sorry. If anyone ever wants to meet, just okay, because like we could really hang out. Get TDR or something, like hang on the dab, and like, what better way to spend a day? So yeah, cool. Senate's awesome. Love Senate. Was a senator once. So rad. Keep doing your thing, pals. Awesome. Oh my God, look at this dog. Wait, can I switch the camera? How do I do that? Oh,
Good, right?
Okay. It's
a good dog. So that was a video that I made this morning. I'm trying to think if I have any other like things to add. Does everyone know what the university? Also, I'm Shannon. Hi everyone. I haven't been here yet. But, does everyone know what the university budget committee is? / would you like me to explain it? Explain it. Okay, cool. So this is how the budget cycle works. So the budget is every 2 years, for like the next 2 years, and they have a committee that does that. So technically, the board of trustees are the people that like the entire budget, like they are the ones that approve it. They can like change anything that they want to, but it like goes through a process. So I'm a part of like the initial, so there's like 3 steps. So like I'm a part of the initial committee called UBC. That's like what you shorten it to, but it's University Budget Committee. And so the University Budget Committee is kind of like advisory committee. Like we don't actually like hold any power to like create the budget without approval, if that makes any sense. But we meet throughout the entire year. We have 1 meeting every month, and we have different goals. There's a timeline that we're working on. So that's like a thing. So like the University Budget Committee meets, then that whatever proposed plan we come up with goes to President Kerwin. So then Kerwin reads everything that, he was in our first meeting. He doesn't meet with us regularly, but he can come when he wants to, because like obviously he's the president. So then we give him like our proposed plan and like what we have developed.
Any senator?
I'm going to extend my 2 minutes.
Any second?
Cool, thank you. And so then the president approves what we put, or he could like change anything that he wants to. Then after the president goes through, the board of trustees come on in, and then they're like, okay, cool. Like, so they take the President Kerwin's plan / our plan, and then they can change anything they want, and then they approve it. So like it is a large, continuous process. But I've been sitting in on those meetings. A lot of it is confidential, unfortunately. Just because it's like a lot of numbers and like information. But if anyone has any questions, like if you all want to just like, you can ask it to me after during the questioning period if you want to, but if you want to meet privately to just chat about things, you can totally ask me about it, and it's pretty cool. Other things that we're doing. For Senate, my freshman year, we had to go through safe space and step up training, and I want to do that with you all. Unfortunately, that didn't really happen last year, and I think that like for some reason, like people, I don't know, I think Jake, who was the comptroller last year, organized a couple things, and like senators didn't show up. It was like a couple step up trainings, so like and safe space, they stopped hosting things for us. I'm gonna foster that relationship back, and like hopefully I'll get safe space trained. So it's like 3 hours, and then step up, which is like 45 minutes. So that's the thing, and then also we have what Gillette passed, we were working on that too. So like that's a thing that you all should go through as well. And then the other thing that we want to work on is, we talked about this in e-board a couple times, but I've been talking to my associate comptroller for human resources. We want to do like a mentorship mentee program here. So like for the new senators and stuff, if like, I don't know what we're going to set the thing as, but like maybe like if you've been in 3 months, you be like a mentor, and if you haven't, then you could be a mentee. But hopefully we'll have like question and answer stuff out that you could like work on over spring break, or not spring break, God, winter break, and then you could send it in sometime, and like I'll match them, and then you can have like, I don't know, it's like big and little, but you can have yours by January. So yeah, that's like a thing that we're working on. And I'm trying to think. I know I also wasn't here last week, so if anyone has any questions on that, you can totally ask me those things as well. Cool.
Questions for the control? Yes.
How far along are you on the creation of the curriculum for the racial sensitivity training?
So I'm not the person that's in charge of that. That's what I'm saying.
So we have, so we have the curriculum that Gillette made last year. We're just looking to tweak it a little bit and revamp it. But like it's already made from what she has, but we want to take another look at it to make sure like it's, you know, what everyone needs at this point.
Yeah, I don't know who's gonna enforce it. I think Jonah said he wanted to, but I figure if I'm doing safe space and step up already, I might as well just do that also. That's kind of why I threw that in there.
I'm sorry, I feel the need to clarify, Jonah did not say you.
Oh.
Any other questions?
Sure. I was just gonna follow up on that. The senators, Kirsten Gillette Pierce's curriculum by the bill that she passed is required for all of you to attend. You can decide sort of as a body what it means to like not attend, but you are required to attend.
And just to clarify on that, there was a bill passed that you also are required to attend Step Up and Safe Space. It just wasn't enforced last year, but I'm gonna enforce it this year once I reach out to them. And we set up some times.
Yeah, this is a question for who knows the answer, like what happens if people don't go to this?
I'm pretty sure they're suspended.
Do you?
Yeah, go ahead.
So it's not automatic. It would be grounds for the Senate to impeach or suspend, but there's no automatic penalty in place. So when I say, you know, it's sort of up to the body what it means to not show up, it really, you have pretty wide latitude because it wasn't included as a provision of the bills, to the best of my knowledge.
Any other questions for the control? Yes.
Can you talk about what your goals were for the budget committee and what you worked with advocate students, what you're able to accomplish and like what they kind of said no to, and then also thank you for the video.
Yeah, of course. It was really fun to film this morning as I was walking to work. Yeah, so I can totally talk about that. I mean, like I can't go into like, there's nothing, did you ask like what they said no to? Is that
Well, like what like student like advocacy like things like.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Like, you do and like what do you think it's going to be able to get accomplished with?
So like the people that sit on the committee all come from different either constituencies or places on campus.
Okay.
So you have like, I think there's 4 people that are staff members that like represent, they're from the faculty senate. So like, there are 4 people that are not staff members, but professors. They're from the faculty senate. Then you have like someone that's a staff member representative. You have Dr. Hansen who does campus life stuff. I would say in terms of student advocacy, I mean, number one, the goal obviously like they like have, they talk about how much they're going to increase tuition every single year. So that's like a thing that the student advocates for is, you know, lowest possible tuition that you could that you can get like while you're on the committee, but also other things that you can do and other ways that I've been advocating are also through like how much money they allocate to like student services and stuff. So it's like primarily a lot of what Dr. Hansen does, which is like campus life. Examples, counseling center, also like the university library sits on the committee, so like resources to that. So there are a whole bunch of different players, and like all of them kind of like want different things out of the budget, but my role on the committee and advocacy that I do is to bring the student voice to that and like talk about what students want and like what students feel they should get out of the what students feel like they should get out of the budget. So that's kind of what I've been doing. If you want to meet sometime, I could talk in detail about like what I'm envisioning that to be. But yeah, we haven't really gotten to that part yet though. Like it's been preliminary stuff as of right now. We just set the guidelines and stuff. So the next meeting should be more focused on that, which is December 1st. On a Tuesday or a Friday once a month Friday or a Thursday from 12 to 2, if anyone wants to schedule. Yeah.
All right, if there are no further motions, we will move on to Secretary Schneider.
Thanks everyone. It was nice to see you all.
Hello, everybody. As it was Shannon's first time, it is also my first time with Senate, so super pumped to be here. Oh, yeah. I hope Google adds some more slide themes because this, I think this is the last one that I haven't used yet. If you have any questions about communications in general, how we do things, how we don't do things, if you want to change something, I'm in the SG office way too much, so you can probably just stop by and odds are I'll be there. If not, you can send me an email. So last week I included in my report, and Sam kind of touched briefly upon, but she didn't know a lot because it's been my project, the new website for student government. We selected Mosaic Strategies. It's a company, it's like a boutique website design company in New Jersey. It's like 10 minutes from my house. I didn't know that when we selected them. And the total cost of design is just under $5,000, and then we'll also pay an additional $2,000 per year for our Nation Builder subscription. So we're going to be moving. So before I got here, we used WordPress. Now we use Squarespace, and then we're going to move to Nation Builder. We did a lot of research over the summer, and we decided that Nation Builder is going to be really good for us. So I'm really excited about that. So then I have some other stuff that I've been thinking about, but I'm not really sure if it's something, if they're things that we actually want to pursue. So let's go through them. SG headshots, what do we think so we don't end up with a bunch of pictures like this? What do we think? Headshots, yes, no. We have our videographer is also a photographer. Once she gets confirmed, she's at a wedding this weekend. So what do we think of doing that kind of to enhance our professional development as an organization? So we've been really working for us and for students, but like, how do we foster kind of our own?
Yes.
Yes. Right, professional development, yeah.
No, love it.
Yeah, they'll be free.
I love it.
Okay, we'll move on. What does everybody think about buying in bulk? So we often find, I personally often find that we are short on some things that we need semi-frequently. So for example, candles for like candle lights, it's not something we like to think about, but when we need them, we don't have them. So stuff like that. Yeah, no. And the other part of this is that I would make this available to other clubs and organizations on campus who may not, want to purchase their own stuff because they don't use it often. We can definitely serve as that resource for them. So
cool.
Yes. Okay, thanks. Marketing co-sponsorship. So this is something that was kind of pioneered last year, but we only did it like twice. And this is something that I want to really capitalize on this year because we have so many communications resources and the listserv and the Facebook and stuff like that. We have a wide reach on campus. So I want to make those available to other clubs and organizations. So this wasn't really for you or yes or no. It's just kind of something that I've been working on. And we're going to keep expanding. And do you have any other ideas that I didn't touch on that you don't think we do, but we might? Anything at all? Alrighty. My office hours in Comic Sans. And can I have 30 more seconds?
Motion to extend by 30 seconds.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. And last but not least, your inspirational quote for the week. This is something new I'm going to start for the 12th Senate. And it's a quote from
One more time ever again.
favorite president. It's an inspirational quote. You guys. Okay. Are there any questions for the secretary? Yes.
I've noticed that we've been putting out a lot of statements via Facebook instead of via the standard statement,
Right.
whatever. Is there a reason for that?
So what we have determined, kind of talking as an e-board, is that people don't
read our press releases because they're boring and it's very corporate. So what we've kind of been able to do with Devontae and Josh is we kind of, Devontae can kind of talk about this.
Yeah. So the way I've been approaching it this semester is taking a more personalized approach to communicating with the student body. So for example, with the flag burning statement that I put out, I was looking at this morning, like people are literally still sharing and commenting on it. And so it's like, I want with the AU community in a way that I think is going to be most effective and most personal, if that makes any sense. I want people to feel a more personal investment in what we're saying and doing as an organization. If you have like questions or like suggestions.
What's the financial obligation for KPU 7WI for the website?
So I sent that over to SA a couple of weeks ago. It's a total of roughly 7. It's like just under 7. So it's 3 from KPU and 1 from sub and WI each, and then
3,000 or 300?
1,000, and then 1 from capital maintenance, and then Dopar's government request. Yes, Senator Rakowski.
It's relationship is awful, isn't it? Do you plan to put the most up-to-date versions of the governing documents on the website?
Once I get them. Mr. Chairman.
I have told the Senate 6 times since the new Senate has come in. They don't exist.
Good to know.
We're working. Are there any other questions?
Once I get the new governing documents will be most up to date on the website. It's very easy. It's a file upload.
You all, the updated that through functional standards, right?
We'll have to do both.
Like the one that you passed.
Nothing changed. Are
Yeah.
there any other questions for the secretary? All right.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
I believe Josh. Yes, Chief of Staff has got me.
Hi, my name is Josh Gummick, I'm the Chief of Staff. This is going to be incredibly quick. If you'd like to meet this week, please email me your availability. I'll no longer be sending out that email. It's like, let's meet, because one person replied and then I can reply to them because I opened it and forgot it happened. It was covered, right? But see, it's still there, so it's coming. If you want to meet, let me know. I can help you accomplish what you campaigned on. If you want to be involved with protecting marginalized students and what I would consider to be the most important work that student government will do, please reach out to me or Devontae. Our plan will be materializing in tangible form in the coming weeks, including sanctuary stuff, safe walks, a lot of other different initiatives. But like that is what I consider to be the most important work that we will have the opportunity to do. Any questions?
Chair of the Judicial Board, Shapiro.
As per usual, I have things that I have to talk about and things that I'm going to talk about. In terms of the 2 items that I have to talk about, the Judicial Board closed 2 cases over the course of the week. One was an advisory opinion posed by a member of this body. I'm pulling it up now so I can read you the whole thing. Yes.
Yeah.
Senator Hurwitz proposed the questions. 1, what are the rights and privileges of a suspended senator? 2, to what extent can a suspended senator participate in student government, including Facebook pages and groups? And 3, what is the process for resolving a suspension either by returning to full status or permanent removal? Approved by a 4-0 vote. I wrote the majority of it. Broadly speaking, and within a few guidelines, the Senate is empowered to control much of the constitution of their membership. This control is primarily played out in the bylaws of the AOSG in Article 9, Section 8, and Section 4. It should be noted that the latter applies more generally than the Senate. Article 9 deals with attendance-related suspensions, and Article 14 is a punitive measure at the whim of the Senate. In response to the first question, suspended members of student government are prohibited from exercising their official duties for the duration specified in the motion. In the case of a senator, the bylaw specifies that they cannot vote, are not endowed with normal speaking rights, but remain on the membership rolls. Further, there is a distinction between suspending someone from student government and suspending someone from their position. The former is impossible except by action of the university, but the later is the purview of the Senate or the judicial board. The distinction between suspending someone from their duties and suspending them from student government is key to understanding their right to be involved in Facebook pages and the related. If a Facebook page is intended to be the private page of senators to discuss official business, then a suspended member would be prohibited from participating in the page. However, if the page was more general and only meant for, quote, members of student government, end quote, the suspension would not change their right to participate. The answer to the third question is dependent on which article of the bylaws was used to suspend them. For Article 9, attendance, suspensions are automatic, but then the senator may challenge the suspension at the next regularly scheduled Senate meeting. Petition to overturn the suspension is treated like a regular Senate confirmation, including CRP hearing. Should the senator decline to petition for the suspension to be overturned, by the way, you should have all of this, you don't need to take notes. Yeah. Awesome. I got worried that you were gonna try to type this out. For Article 14 suspensions are automatically expire at the end of a pre-specified duration not to exceed a month. Permanent removal from the Senate is obtained via the impeachment process or a judicial board case and are separate from suspension. Are there any questions on that case? As again, this is advisory and meant to aid senators and other student government officials in the execution of their duties. Cool. The second case was not advisory, was an actual opinion. Presumably the majority of you are aware of the events that transpired at the last Senate meeting, whereby you suspended one of the members of the Senate, or should I say, one of the former members of the Senate. The member in question asked that the board overrule that suspension on the grounds that it followed improper procedures. So there were three questions that the board posed, that were posed to the board. Question 1, was the procedure employed by the Senate during the suspension of Senator Lane improper? Question 2 was a motion for injunctive relief submitted by Senator Lane to nullify the Senate suspension of Senator Lane. And question 3 was a motion for injunctive relief submitted as a counter to Senator Lane by Speaker Wills to set aside the improper aspect of a legal action. The opinion was as follows, again approved on a 4-0 vote. As a prerequisite to questions 2 and 3, the board must find that the procedure implemented was improper while suspending Senator Lane. In this, the board concurs with Senator Lane, uncontested and accepted by Speaker Wills, that by failing to provide a sunset period for the suspension, the procedure was improper.
I move to extend by a period of 2 minutes.
Is there a second? Second. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed?
Cool. I'm just going to have to talk quickly. Recognizing that this procedure was improper, it's the business of the board to correct the actions of other branches in such a way that recognizes the complexity of the governing documents, respects the legal intent of the other branches, but also respects the text of the governing documents. In line with this, the board is unanimous in granting Senator Lane's motion for injunctive relief. Period established for suspension, but it's impossible to definitively decipher the true intent of the Senate. It is entirely possible, as Speaker Wills would have the board believe, that the Senate meant to suspend Senator Lane for the maximum allowable period of 1 month. However, it is more likely that the intent of the Senate was permanent removal, as shown in the personal communications of Speaker Wills, as well as the statements made by other members of the Senate. Given that likelihood, establishing a month-long suspension is likely contrary to the Senate and the governing documents. Further, had the intent truly been permanent removal, then the procedure would be far greater in terms of error than failing to designate a sunset period. It is therefore incumbent on the Senate to readdress the question of Senator Lane's continued membership in the Senate through either suspension or impeachment proceedings. As a corrective measure, the board hereby orders an examination of Senator Lane's position in the Senate to be the first item of new business the next regularly convened Senate. The board takes no position at this time as to what the outcome of such examination should be, only that revote must be held until such time Senator Lane shall be endowed with all the rights and privileges of a sitting senator. The motion by Speaker Wills is denied. You'll see that it is right here. Okay, any question on those cases? Seeing and hearing none. There'll also be a question after. We're going to do questions then, actually. 2 other things. Approve my judicial register. You hopefully got it last night. It'll go through first reading today and then second reading next time we meet. If you want to talk to me about why it says a lot of what it says, we'll do that when we talk about the actual judicial register. I'll be a little bit more specific. And as came up just recently,
the bylaws and governing caucus or whatever committee that says Speaker Will's created, I hope something happens with that, because it is really hard to do the job of the judicial board if we have to just cross-reference with bills as compared to governing documents. Now, are there any questions?
Any questions?
How many members are on J board?
5.
How many are in the country?
4.
Wow, who's not in the country?
Gabby Gaugin is abroad, I believe in Italy.
Is she still participating in the opinions?
She reserves the right to, but has so far not.
So she's not been doing any of the hangings on this whole year?
That's correct. All of the decisions this year have so far been 4-0.
How many people, like how many opinions or whatever do you issue?
Do you want me to count elections,
How many has she
approving
not
conference
been- how many
agreements?
Has she like not been able to participate in?
Upwards of 10.
Okay.
Have you reached out to her besides emails with the stuff in it?
Yes, emails and Facebook messages. The conclusion that we reached, again via Facebook, was if it was necessary for her to participate, like she would do a greater effort to participate. It has so far not been.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so at what point do you replace that member of the judicial board so that it's more active position?
When they graduate, our positions are for life.
Is there?
You can impeach them, but I can't.
Any other questions?
But again, it's sort of like a temporary going abroad thing, so
Okay.
we might want to talk about how to temporarily redress that, but I don't think it's been a problem so far.
I know that you were at the last meeting, but obviously it went really long and a lot of people had to leave. But is someone from J board required to be at the meetings, like all the meetings, or no?
No, a member of the judicial branch is supposed to be at the meetings. That's your parliamentarian. 9 times out of 10 questions of what goes on in a Senate first have to go to the parliamentarian, then go to the speaker, sort of, then go to CRP, then go to J board. So that's why we're not here all the time, because it usually doesn't go to us immediately. In the absence of a member of the, in the absence of the parliamentarian, the highest ranking J board member has historically stepped up as acting parliamentarian. But I found out over the weekend that there's no about why that's supposed to happen. So I put it in the upcoming judicial register so that it actually happens.
Yeah.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah, because I was just seeing what we could do to prevent the misflow that happened last.
Yeah. I mean, in all honesty, I work at 3 o'clock every Sunday. So when Senate was held earlier, I could show up for the whole thing. Given that it is now later, that is unlikely.
Is she coming back next semester?
I believe so.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you very much.
I would just like to clarify something. In the absence that if I'm not here, I will try to get someone from the J board to come, knowing that John does have to work. Last week, just so happened, nobody was available.
Okay, so I'll go on to my report. Make this super fast. Let me start my time. So no meeting next week. Don't show up because I won't be here. Happy Thanksgiving. I'll be holding the first meeting for both of the ad hoc committees that I created. Probably not this week, seeing it's the holiday, but when we get back from Thanksgiving, so we can get the leadership of those ad hoc committees in, and I'd like to talk to those people more about what I want them to do for the rest of the year. If you're interested in being on one of these ad hoc committees, I have one on reviewing governing documents, and you haven't already talked to me, please do. I'll add you to the list. If you have talked to me and I've added you to the list and no longer want to be part of that, also come talk to me. Please, please, please shut the office door when you leave. MDC 268, I've walked in 3 times with nobody in there, and the office door is wide open. And only use the Senate printers for Senate-related materials. I can see what you download on the computer and the papers, so go to the library, please. Other stuff now on ausg.org, and then if you have to switch those up and you tell me, I'll post them on our Facebook page so people know where to go. If you can't make it to your office hours, again, tell me 3 days in advance so I can make that public so people have time to know the change. Meet with Cheyenne, she's going to talk in a few minutes. at least once before the end of the semester if you can. She wants to talk to you about what you want to do for the rest of the year and things like that, and how she can help you. That's her email if you want to write it down right now. Thanks to Senator Kenna, our historian, for making our new nameplates. I think they look a lot better than what I did. Keep going. And say hi to Madison. She's our new clerk. She's really cool. She's doing a great job. She had that 4-hour meeting to type up afterwards. So that's awesome. So that's my email for those of you that don't know. These are my office hours now that everybody has had a chance to declare theirs. I went in like the off times of everybody. Or you can do it by appointment. The chair of the judicial board said, Senator Lane resigned last night, so there are now 2 open positions for 2018. So if you know anybody that might want to fill any of these seats, I'd love to get them filled. Right now, I don't have any applicants for any of them, so I would love to get ahead of that. And that is all. Are there any questions for me? Okay, we will move on to advising from student activities. Cheyenne just wants to say a few words real quick.
Hi, everyone. So I met most of you at the Senate retreat. If I haven't met you, I'm Cheyenne. I work over in student activities. Ideally, if you all could set up a meeting with me, it's only a 10-minute meeting, maybe 20 minutes if you have a lot to talk about, just to see what it is you guys want to do. Student activities really wants me to provide development and growth and things like that. And I want to see where you guys are and what you want so that I'm not wasting your time. And that's really all I have to say.
All right, awesome. Again, this time will be for things like our trainings and things like that, so we won't always just skip over. We will move to new business. Because Senator Lane did resign, there was no need to reconsider the suspension that the J board required. So we'll move on to the policy book, the judicial register. This will be the first reading, unless anybody would like to waive first reading. So if not, we will move on. Senator Wachowski.
Is there a way to send that to committee? Judicial register?
So the bylaws state that both readings must be for Senate. That doesn't say that they can't go to committee, but I would suggest you guys meet up if you're really passionate about it and look it over. Just so everybody knows, I'll just go over this real quick and I'll send it to you. You can't amend the judicial register in the Senate. That has to go to the recommendation to the JSOC.
I didn't write this. Go ahead. So I didn't write that provision that y'all can't amend it. I blame Chairman Dillon, who was 2 chairs ago, who has continued this trend. Obviously, I kept it, but the way that this process works, if you want to take it into your committee, you can do so sort of independently. And then all you have to do is send a report from your committee. Again, it is non-binding, but it goes to the full Senate. When the Senate votes on accepting an amendment to the judicial register, it then gets forwarded back to the judicial board. 3 of the 5 board members then have to sign off on it to be accepted as an amendment to the judicial register, and then it comes back to the Senate for up or down vote. You can, if you want, send back more amendments, and then we can keep this process going until one of us graduates. I'd recommend do not do that, but it is technically within the purview of the Senate and the board.
Yeah, up or down vote has to be 2/3 majority.
So you guys got it last night. Sorry, it was late. That's when I got it. So I recommend you guys look it over this week. Yeah, his computer crashed, so we'll take a pity. So if there are no motions, we will continue on to the consideration of resolution 16-17-003, which I will pull up. All right, if Senator Pugh would like to come down and speak on behalf of the resolution, you have 4 minutes.
Have to go down there?
You don't have to.
Okay, I'm gonna sit right here then.
Okay. We will. One second. Okay. Is there any points or motions for debate on the resolution? Mr. President?
I just wanted to clarify that, I understand the underlying intention of the resolution, but I think one of the hesitations I have in seeing sort of what people of the trans community were saying during the Westboro Baptist Church is that like they didn't think the counter protest should have happened. And given that there are also members of student government who identify as trans, I don't want us to end up disregarding sort of their concerns. The overarching sentiment was that like there should not have been a counter protest, and instead we should have been like supporting the trans community in the healing space that they were having. But like I get that like counter protesting, I don't want it to seem like this is like a terrible idea because I understand like the initial inclination to do this, but I just wanted to also echo the concerns that members of the trans community had in going to a counter protest of the Westboro Baptist Church. That's just want to put that out
Are there any points or motions for debate? Yes.
Yeah, so I thank the president for his remark. I think that was a really good point, because Queers and Allies also put out a statement encouraging people not to hold a counter protest. I think at the same time, it's important to recognize that the counter protest was peaceful. And also I think it's really important to recognize the AU staff and public safety for keeping the protest safe. So I wonder if it would be better to take out the part about commending the peaceful protest and instead just recognizing that it was peaceful and recognizing that public safety did help keep it safe. So
kind of going off of both of those points, we worked with Q&A prior to the day of the Westboro Baptist Church coming. And so we actively broadcast their message, which was to not protest. So if we're going to talk about the events of that day, I think it's also important to commend Queers and Allies on what they ended up doing that day, which we backed them on, which was doing a healing circle in MGC for a couple hours for the trans and non-binary community on campus, because that's how able to deal with what was happening with WBC coming. So I think commending the protest is kind of making people who are outside that community feel better. I don't think it does anything.
I agree with Chris's last point that I don't think passing a resolution does anything to benefit people, since it doesn't really have an effect. But what I think I would like to see is a resolution that is more geared towards thanking public safety, the staff, and the students for how they came together as a university as a whole. And while some people didn't want to counter protest, some people did, both in and outside of the communities that were affected. So I felt like it is important to recognize those who chose to and those who didn't choose to. So I feel like a resolution could divide those. So I think it's important. We should pass a resolution, but I think it should be focused on like commending public safety, thanking them for the way they handled it, thanking the staff for coming together the way they handled it, of their busy work days, like when they didn't have to come like help maintain like order and like help the community.
Senator Shin.
That kind of just brought us right back to where this is, which is commending something that the affected community did not want to happen. And the reasoning behind that was that the protests are not there for the trans and non-binary community on a regular basis. So we're commending people who wanted to, kind of show up for the show of it all, and they didn't. And Q&A events, they don't attend trans and non-binary community events. And so I think that is really important. If you're going to talk about the protest, you also have to preface it by the fact, I think before you talk about protesting and whatever, you need to talk about and commend Q&A and their campus partners on what they were able to do for the affected community, because they're the ones that were affected. The rest of the campus community, they just kind of showed up and did their own thing against the advice of the rest of the community.
Yeah, I just want to bring it back to when I try to go by that Devontae mentioned in his report, which is like the idea of like nothing about us without us. I'm just very uncomfortable with us passing this resolution, even though I understand where it's coming from. And I do recognize that the protest was peaceful, and that's definitely something that is good. But The fact that it happened, we opposed to the wishes of the community it was purported to support, makes me personally very uncomfortable, and I think it's not the place, since Q&A already made several statements saying, like, this is not what we want, we have something else that we'd prefer. I think if SG is to be effective and genuine allies in that, I don't see how this resolution would really advance that at all.
I move to amend the resolution, and specifically the wording change that I would propose is to amend the be it resolved clause to read that the American University student government recognizes and commends the effective efforts of American University staff and public safety. It's copied and pasted from the therefore be it resolved further, right? For keeping the counter protest of the Westboro Baptist Church civil on November 11th, 2006. I went kind of fast there. Let me know if you need changes or repetition. And the second portion of my amendment, let me know when you're ready.
Is this right so far?
Yes.
Okay.
Would be to amend the therefore be it further resolved clause to strike everything and replace it with that the American University student government will continue to promote the messages and wishes of AU queers and allies.
Continue to promote.
Promote the messages and wishes of AU queers and allies.
Yes.
All I'm gonna say to that is we are not promoting the messages and wishes of AU queers and allies if we pass a resolution commending a protest they never wanted. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yes. So I
move to vote on the amendment.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? All those opposed?
No.
No.
Okay, do any of the chair that knows have it? So the amendment does not pass. 1 second. Oh, I could. Did the hard way. Okay. Yes.
The only other thing that I will say is that I think not only the reason that queers and allies didn't want people to counter protest, and I'm not trying to speak for the trans community, but also what I have read is that it wasn't just about people not being there on a daily basis for trans people, that was part of it. But also what was part of it was validating the Westboro Baptist Church, and that is the problem with them. I think what a lot of students wanted was them to just be ignored, because that doesn't validate their points. That's what they a lot of people say what the Westboro Baptist Church wants out of people is that reaction. That is what they're looking for. So yeah, exactly. So it is a business model. So that's the only thing that I would I just wanted to throw that in the air too, just because I don't want us to also validate the Westboro Baptist churches, not us, but anything, SG in general, validate their, and while I think this is a great sentiment, I understand, that, I just wanted to throw that out there too.
I just think we should pass it. Either amend it completely or a new resolution, pretty much just thanking the staff and public safety for keeping things peaceful, not going to anything about whether it should or should not have happened. Because in my opinion, I think we shouldn't have given them attention, but it did happen. So I think we should thank public safety for doing a good job of dealing with the situation, and staff for doing it, and not discuss the merits of whether or we should not or should not have had the protest, and we should not be thanking the student body for having the protest when the protest wasn't wanted.
Mr. Shapiro? Sure. So I certainly don't speak for queers and allies or for any member of that community, but I will say as an individual, it's also important to recognize that the Westboro Baptist Church stands for more than just hating binary individuals. 80 to 90% of their signage was targeting Jews. From that framework, I certainly appreciate the counter protest. I recognize that the press release as to why they were there didn't happen to mention Jews, but 90% of the things that the Westboro Baptist Church stands for is anti-Jews.
So I think it's important to consider other communities as well when we're having this debate, which were considerably more in favor of the protest than the wishes of one.
Controller McDermott.
So what I will say to that is that the Westboro Baptist Church came here specifically to target the trans community. They're currently on a tour. I don't want to like say what the tour is because it is like really highly offensive and terrible, but it is not about any other community except for the trans community, and that is why they're traveling the country right now. And they targeted American University because they know that like they have like they think that like this is a place where a lot of trans people like go to school pretty much. So like that's why they came to AU. It wasn't for any other reason besides the trans community.
Any other points or motions?
Mr. Speaker, I move to move into open discussion and suspend the rules.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor of suspending the rules, say aye.
Aye.
All those
Aye.
opposed? All right, the rules are suspended. Senator Hurwitz.
I would like to say that I think both what John and Shannon said, parts of it are true. They were here at our school to protest specifically transgender students, and then after that, they went down the street to the Jewish temple to protest Jewish people. So while I think they were here specifically for transgender people, but in general, they also do a lot of both. So.
Mr. President.
So why don't we sort of take the focus off of what the Westboro Baptist Church is doing in totality and really focus on affirming our support for people of these marginalized identities holistically. So we take it away from the Westboro Baptist Church's protest and saying that we're going to continue to support, our Jewish students, our trans students, et cetera, and not make it about the protest. So that way we're not validating the Westboro Baptist Church, but we're also not ignoring the communities.
I think that would be particularly effective in light of the swastikas drawn in Ward, and I think we should maybe not just even focus on the counter protest or any of it, just the general atmosphere of campus being so hurtful recently, and people feeling very much in danger. I think if we could change it to encompass all of that, that would be
Senator Winkowski.
Mr. Speaker, I move to strike the entirety of the resolution and replace it.
Okay. Do you have it already written out?
I sure do not.
Okay.
I can write it though.
Let's do this.
All right. Feel free to talk over me if you want to, guys. It's great. Whereas American University students consistently feel targeted and all right, guys, this is Kumbaya Circle. Get out here, come on.
You should table this. Have a write it out.
Fine.
Or
Mr. Speaker, I move to table the legislation.
Hold on.
Get this done today before we take a week break. Why don't we take a 10-minute recess?
Just table it right now.
Just table it and someone goes by.
Just table it for like a minute. Go back to the end.
Yeah, but then somebody's gonna be.
It's fine, I'll write it now.
The motion is that, what was your motion?
I move to table the legislation.
I second the motion.
Thank you.
All those in favor of tabling the legislation, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Legislation is tabled. Okay. We will now move into old business. The approval of the ethical and judicial standards. Let me pull it up 1 second. All right. Are there any points? Senator Rokowski.
Mr. Speaker, I move to suspend the rules to allow myself to speak,
Is there a second?
just because I submitted a bunch of stuff about how I want it.
I second it.
All those in favor? All those opposed? Okay. Any of the chair? What?
I can't object, but I would.
Okay. All right.
I sent you a bunch of stuff. Well, I sent you one email. It wasn't a bunch of stuff. So we tabled this last week because John had some problems with it. Thank you, John. Jonah and I met on Friday and tried to go through it. We made some changes. mostly to the process of peer mediation. Yeah, is that just your email? Yeah. I sent it to Noah Wills. Well. Do you need me to send it again? Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that one, I think you
Yes.
just sent.
No, I didn't send, no. It was, I think I sent it a couple days ago.
Cool. So I'm leaving. That's good work as per usual. But I will say that I have talked to Faith and Jonah, the authors of the amendments, and I will reiterate again my concerns. The ethical and judicial standards in its current form and in its proposed form do not account for activities that happen outside of a student government context. So if you believe that members of student government should be held to a certain standard sort of outside the bounds of this organization, maybe not harassing other students, you might want to put that in, because otherwise the comptroller and the judicial board enforce that if it's not really stuff.
Thank you, John.
With that.
Yes, we just added an article at the beginning about jurisdiction, basically including what constitutes a student government workspace, which we defined as offices, ad hoc meetings, events, workshops, recruitment events, business conducted electronically, and other business conducted between SG office holders. Because we wanted the ethical and judicial standards to apply to things like the meeting that you called the other day that wasn't like it was just called. Also, section 2 that we added under Article 1 was about who could enforce them, which we said was the comptroller or the comptroller's designee. It says associate comptroller of HR in the original ethical and judicial standards, but the comptroller can change the titles at any time, and we don't want that to be tied to whether you can enforce this or not. We also said that mediation outcomes could be appealed by either party to the judicial board, which I think is important. And thirdly, we said that people who are submitting an ethical and judicial complaint have to be members of student government. So that's what the whole Article 1 was. Yeah, keep going. We changed all of this also. A lot. Mostly, so in the original ones, you had to do peer mediation and then go to like a disciplinary meeting or disciplinary hearing, which I thought was a weird 2-step process. I don't exactly know why it was 2 steps, but I figure if you're going to be doing peer mediation, why not just have the ruling of the comptroller or comptroller's designee from that mediation be final, and then you can appeal it to the judicial board if you don't agree. So that's basically what this whole section is. We took out the entire thing about the hearing thing because it was weird and unnecessary. So feel free to check that out. We added a section about privacy because that's important. We didn't change particularly anything about the safe space language because most of it is still relevant. And we couldn't think of anything to add that would make it better. So if Shannon has anything, perhaps we can check that out. But mostly what we changed in the ethical and judicial standards in this amendment was process related. John spoke about some more complaints that he has. I think they're valid, but I think that we've already gone a week without up-to-date ethical and judicial standards. So I think we should pass this and then go back into it later.
Also, something important to note is like these can always pass again too. So like we can pass this today, but if anyone wants to work on things that like John was talking about, like you can just reach out to me and like we can go through them or reach out to Faith or whoever's interested in this. And like it's like a continuous process. Like this is not the end. This will never. They're always able to be amended. So yeah.
So are you motioning to amend policy book to read it as?
Yeah, I'm moving to strike everything in the one that you sent us a few days ago and replace it with what I sent you.
Okay, is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor of the amendment, say aye.
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 All those opposed? All right, the amendment does pass. Are there any other points or motions on the ethical and judicial standards? Any motions to adopt?
I move to adopt.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor of adopting?
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, the ethical and judicial standards are adopted. Get that one back later. Okay, that takes care of old business. We will now move into a period of public comment. Are there any members of the public wishing to speak? Yes.
My name is Donald Dariush. I'm a freshman at AU. I ran for senator at large, and I lost my election, but I interviewed to be SIS senator. I met with Noah, we had an interview process, and I was offered the nomination. However, a week ago from today, last week, I got an email in the morning saying you actually decided to remove your nomination, and there's no need for you to come set for confirmation. I was shocked, as were some of you, as I heard. So I essentially pressed the issue, met with Noah that evening around 5 p.m. at the Senate meeting, asked him what the issue was, and I was met with someone came up to me and gave me confidential information that made me essentially reconsider your nomination, which to me is not enough. Because unless there's something wrong with how I'm going to act and what I'm going to do in this room, in student government, I don't think that my actions outside of student government can affect what I was going to do for AU students and what I was going to do for my peers. I don't want the position anymore. Essentially this validated to me how, sort of pretend and petty student government can be. And I think it spoke volumes to me. But what I do suppose is the cause of this essentially is there's an RA in my building that I have run into with every now and again. I've never been written up by him, but he's very the stickler for rules. And literally what happened was I was bringing 6 people up to my room and he said, oh, you can only have 3 people up in your room at a time. And I told him that's fucking stupid. Excuse my language. And he said, excuse me, and then I went upstairs, and the next thing I know, literally the next day, it's gone. Jonah and Jonah Wolf is the RA, is friends with Noah, and I have reason to believe that because of that, Noah essentially pulled my nomination because of his friend coming to him, not even coming to me to hear my Senate story. I just figured I thought that you, the people, should know. That it's your right to know. That's all I'm saying.
Any other members of the public wishing to speak?
Yeah, so I want to speak as not as Jonah Wolf, just to be clear. I am Jonah's proxy, so I want to speak as Ryan Fidasher, which is who I am in real life. Hi, nice to see you all. So many of you know this, some of you don't. I am in RHA. A couple weeks ago, I became speaker. I am very interested in passing resolutions and bills that have a tangible impact on students living in the residence halls, as well as outside the residence halls. Frequently, I am met with opposition to some legislation on the grounds that it doesn't affect students just in residence halls and that this applies more to student government than it does to RHA. Specifically, I've been trying to push a lot of legislation regarding mental health and access to those resources on campus. I'm proud to say that RHA passed 4 of those bills that I authored on Thursday last week. So totally check out my Facebook post about it. Super proud about that. But the reason I want to talk to you right now is I'm encouraging all of you to please reach out to me because I want to pass proactive resolutions with all of you with student government. I personally want RHA and student government to work together to better students' lives at AU in tangible and concrete ways. That is increasing access to information in the forms of posters and flyers, as well as improving the kinds of programming that exist on campus. So if you have any ideas, or if you want to reach out to me in the future, please do so. Add me on Facebook. My name is Ryan Fidashic. Just type in FED. I'm sure I'll pop up. And so please just reach out to me. Really excited to work with all of you. Thank you.
All right, any other members of the public wishing to speak? Seeing none, we will move to go to the order. Are there any senators or members of student government wishing to speak? Senator Rokowski.
I'm just going to address whatever that was. You can't just pull someone's nomination. It doesn't work that way. There are very specific guidelines. Just pull a nomination. I have 100% confidence that Noah didn't just pull this kid's nomination. I'm sure that there was a situation either regarding grades or conduct that occurred with this individual that caused Noah to pull his nomination. Just gonna put that out there.
Yeah, I just have a question. Is there anything we can say to like clarify, or is it just all confidential?
So I can't speak to truthfulness or not, when you said it. I will say that an individual came to me and reported something that happened that directly went against our ethical and moral standards, most likely that we just passed. And I didn't think that he represented what we wanted in student government to be in, so I did lose nomination. If you have any more questions, I'm sorry, I hope you understand I can't really like say specifics because it is not my place to say. But I hope that answers any of your questions. Are there any other members? Yes.
I just have to point out that there is, not, unlike what Faith kind of just said, Noah does have the authority to pull a nomination if he deems fit, as long as it hasn't come before the Senate at the time. There's no stipulation in the bylaws that says he cannot. It is up to the discretion of the speaker.
If you would like me to reconsider, reach out to me, and I will do that. But I hope you will trust my judgment. Senator.
I just have a follow-up question for Scott. Does that, if it's already on the agenda, can the speaker still pull it, or does it have to be strike from or voted to be removed by the Senate?
If it's already on the agenda, it would have to be struck by the Senate. But if he, as long as it's not like during the meeting when he pulls it, he's allowed to, because technically the agenda is kind of in a flux state, because he could just send out another agenda.
Anybody else for the good of the order? Mr. President.
Again, if you're interested in working on any of the next step action items, please feel free to reach out to me or Josh. A few of you already have. I know Haley has, she's not here today. We are going to need as much help as possible. I think it's something we all should be working on, and that's not like what we all should be looking. But yeah, reach out to me, let me know. If I don't see you before Thursday, have a great holiday break this week.
Any other? Yes.
I just want to say that, though we don't have it in our ethical and judicial standards yet, what goes on outside of Senate, now more than ever, we are being watched by the AU students, faculty, everyone. So I think that it's more than essential that we are working to promote ourselves in the best way possible. So any kind of conduct violations or anything should be taken as seriously as possible, even before you get.
Anybody else with a good of the order? If not, the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Speaker, I move to adjourn by unanimous consent.
Is there any objection? All right, this meeting is adjourned.
It's